This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Welcome back to the Champion Forum podcast. Today's topic is all about setting an agenda at the start of a sales call. This practice, it might sound simple. Jeff, how important could be setting of an agenda? There's more important things to cover in a sales call, right? But I can tell you this. Setting an agenda in a sales call can make all the difference in how your sales calls go. Setting an agenda helps establish control of the sales call. It helps set expectations and makes the call valuable, not only for you, but more importantly, for your prospect. So in today's episode, we'll discuss why this approach works, the benefits it brings to you as the salesperson, and some tips for creating agendas that will engage your prospects right from the start of the call. Welcome back, everyone, to the show. I'm coming fresh off of a 2-day Sales Academy workshop that just finished last week. And I always get so energized at the end of this 2-day workshop. The questions that come from salespeople, I can see the light bulbs going off. Sometimes there's things that I teach that I take for granted, that a lot of salespeople are hearing for the very first time. The things that I believe are fundamentals, they're elementary to becoming a good salesperson. And over the last weekend, I was sitting there and I was reflecting on some of the questions some of the people that attended were asking on breaks or even by raising their hands, as well as some of the emails and messages that we received after this Sales Academy workshop. And so I wanted to take a couple of weeks and address a couple key areas from the Sales Academy that I've never talked about on the podcast before, that I maybe just kind of brushed off as certainly everybody gets it. And setting the agenda of a sales call is one of those things. You see, setting the agenda at the beginning of a sales call is a strategy that builds trust. It keeps things focused and locked in to where we're going, helping the prospect navigate the journey. Because what we're doing in setting the agenda is we're providing structure, which if you think about it is very professional and it's kind. There's multiple benefits to making this a part of your sales process. And among those is that it creates transparency and it sets clear expectations and it gives that prospect a roadmap. A roadmap is a beautiful thing because it lets us know what to expect. When you lay out a quick agenda at the start of a sales call, it tells your prospect exactly what's going to happen. You're giving them a sense of what to expect. By doing this and this alone, it helps alleviate any potential resistance that they might feel coming into this meeting. Hey, by the way, isn't it true that prospects that come into sales meetings, it's usually not, if they were ranking the most enjoyable things of their job, it's probably not meeting with salespeople, right? Most of the time, there's a bias that's in place, and it's more times than not, it's a negative bias towards salespeople. So what we do here by setting the agenda is we're already beginning to tear down some walls and alleviate some resistance. You're also signaling to them that you respect their time, which they're going to appreciate. Meaning, I'm not a time waster. I've come prepared. I've come structured. The other thing that this does is it establishes control and authority, which you need as a salesperson. We need to be salespeople that are very confident, not overbearing, but we seek control of the call. Setting an agenda allows you to guide the conversation in a very structured way. And by doing this, you avoid the risk of a conversation going off track or the prospect taking over the meeting. Has that ever happened to you? Well, if you've been in sales any length of time, you know this can happen. Especially if you have that dominant personality style that's a prospect and they're looking to take over the meeting and talk over you or throw an invoice out on the table and say, this is what we're paying, can you beat it? You know what I'm talking about, right? Sometimes these sales meetings can go way off track and we're sitting in our car after the meeting thinking, what in the world just happened? What went wrong? When you set an agenda, you begin to take control and you begin to take authority. You're showing that you have a plan, that you've done this before. This isn't your first rodeo, and that you're serious about helping them. We need to take control. Why? Because we're the experts, or we should be. It is our product. It is our service. Nobody would dream about showing up to the doctor's office and, the lab reports are back, or the MRI is back, and you say to the doctor, hand me the reports. Let me tell you what we're going to do to fix this tumor. Let me tell you what kind of medicine we're going to prescribe. The patient doesn't have the say. Why? The doctor comes in and in a very directive approach starts talking about the diagnosis and what we're going to do to fix it. Why do they do that? Well, because they're the expert. They're the one that's wearing the lab coat. It would be crazy if a patient took over control of that call or of that doctor's visit. Same thing goes in sales. Now, look, I'm not saying we don't collaborate. We absolutely do. But we are the experts with our product. We are the experts with our service. We need to take control of the call. The other thing setting an agenda does is it improves engagement. I have found in all of my years in sales, prospects are more likely to be engaged in a call when they know what's coming. A clear agenda, it invites participation because they'll have a chance to add anything they want to cover or address up front. They're going to weigh in on this with the setting of an agenda. They may even give you some early objections, which, by the way, wouldn't you rather have an early objection than you're halfway through a meeting and then they start giving objections? What we're doing is we're offering collaboration at the front of this sales call. And maybe most importantly, I think it drives credibility, doesn't it? When you start with an agenda, you're showing this prospect that you're organized, you're professional, and this is important. Credibility is crucial because a prospect who trusts you, they're far more likely to listen to you and what you have to offer. You're not the only sales rep coming in. You're not the only sales rep that they meet. They're going to remember how they feel. They're going to remember these little things. They might not walk out of that meeting and say, wow, that sales rep really nailed that opening agenda. They're not, but they're going to remember how they felt. This is a great way to open up dialogue. When you share the agenda, you may want to incorporate asking if there's anything that they'd like to add to your agenda or specific topics that they have in mind. This helps prospects feel like their needs are being prioritized. We're not here just to ram our agenda down your throat, but we're here to collaborate. I'm going to tell you what I believe is a well-run sales meeting. I'm going to direct you in the path that I think makes the most sense. But I also want to know what makes sense for you. What are you looking to gain at the conclusion of this meeting? And there's a simple 3-step process to think about whenever you're setting an agenda. Purpose, procedure, and payoff. And here's things to think about as we're doing this purpose, procedure, payoff. Start with a warm greeting. Thank them. Thank them for their time. I mean, look, the hardest thing that we can do is get the meeting, right? You've been prospecting and cold calling and all of these things. They agreed to meet with you. That's huge. Thank them for their time. Briefly connect on something positive to create a warm atmosphere, and then go right into introducing the agenda. This is when you let them know what to expect in the meeting. And then the third thing is to invite collaboration. Close the agenda by asking, does this sound good to you? In sales, we call this a trial close. Because if it sounds good to them, they're going to say yes. If it doesn't sound good to them, they're going to tell you why. So you're already smoking out early objections. You may want to also say, is there anything specific you'd like to discuss in the meeting today? When we invite this third step of inviting collaboration, this small step turns this call into a two-way conversation. I'm not here just to show up and throw up. We're going to collaborate. We're going to do this together. And when you set the agenda, it's probably going to sound something like this. Brad, thanks for taking time to meet with me today to speak to you about your leadership programs here. As I mentioned to you over the phone, we've been able to help ABC and XYZ company in your same industry, helping them to enhance the influence of their leaders as it relates to the employee-leader relationship. This has allowed a lot of our customers to reduce turnover and help their people that they lead reach their fullest potential. What I'd like to do today is ask you some questions because I want to learn about your company and the needs that you have for your leadership development. I want you to feel free to ask me any questions so that you get all the information you need. Based on what I hear from you, I'm going to customize some recommendations and put together a leadership development program that makes sense for your company. If everything looks good, we'll schedule a time to get the program going and get the training started. Does that sound okay with you? They say yes or they say no. And then I say something like this: hey, before we get started, is there anyone else that would help in making the decision as it relates to leadership development? What am I doing already in the agenda? I'm starting to pull in buying influences and I'm starting to pull in decision makers. Now think about that. What did it take me? Run it back a little bit. I'm going to guess 15 seconds, 20 at most, to set that agenda. What did I do? I started out by thanking them for their time and what to expect. I also create a little bit of FOMO in there, this fear of missing out, by dropping a couple of references local. Everybody else is doing it. You should be doing it too. And I tell them how I've helped those other companies, and I inject some assumed buying motives. Increase your leader's influence, help reduce turnover, and help the people that they lead reach their fullest potential. These are probably assumed buying motives of somebody looking for a leadership development program. Then I trial close at the end to either gain agreement or get the early objection. If I gain agreement, guess what? I now have full control of this call, which is what we want. We want to be the ones guiding the call. This approach is very simple, very clear, and very effective. You have now set the tone for a collaborative conversation and have shown them respect for their time. Make this agenda setting an absolute habit. It should be part of your sales DNA. Write the script. Go back and copy paste the show notes and start memorizing this script over and over and over again. Remember the 3-step process: purpose, procedure, payoff. Here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to ask you questions. You ask me questions. I'm going to customize a program over and over and over again until it's memorized so it doesn't sound robotic, but it flows very natural. Appreciate you all tuning in today. Setting an agenda at the start of a sales call. It might seem like the most minor thing, but it's a powerful tool that can significantly impact how your sales call goes. When you use an agenda consistently, you'll find your sales calls are smoother, more productive, and better received by your prospects. I hope this episode inspires you to try this approach on your next sales call. Remember, a little planning up front, it can go a long way in making each call a success. Thanks for listening, and never forget to keep turning that sales pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.